Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to all of the witnesses for being here. I want to particularly say hello to and welcome Mr. Tudor of a Springfield-based Associated Electric Cooperative. I say Springfield-based, that would be Springfield, Missouri-based, which is also my hometown. So it is great to have you here. And I know the rural parts of my state in particular appreciate the work that Associated has done. Many times I think rural areas are overlooked, even when we're talking about something as important as the grid system. And so I want to thank you for the work that you do. I was really struck by these statistics in preparing for today's hearing. Associated, your cooperative, Mr. Tudor, provides power predominantly to older individuals. 57% are over the age of 57, 33% over the age of 65, and folks on lower incomes, which is pretty typical for rural areas of Missouri and for other states, and yet you do it at some of the most affordable rates in the nation. Talk to us a little bit about your co-op model, why you think it works, and what we can all learn from it.
Thank you, sir. We're a little bit different. Sometimes we affectionately call ourselves a unicorn. We sit, between RTOs. My predecessor chose not to join an RTO years and years ago. When I arrived 7 years ago at Associated, we looked at joining MISO or SPP, and we decided not to for a lot of reasons. We support the market structure. We do a lot of business with MISO and SPP. We're just different. Missouri, as you know, is kind of the show-me state, and that lends itself to a significant amount of independence. And so our membership, our customers, our member owners, our transmission owners, our management team really believes that that we'd prefer to operate our own assets, including our transmission system, and be responsible for serving our own load. So what's different is RTOs, that's all blended, where there's 100 utilities, and they're least cost dispatching. But to the point of, from affordability standpoint, we do have some of the lowest rates in the country. Our transmission rates are, about a fourth of what the RTO transmission rates are, and it's because we only build transmission for load, for what our members need. It's a little different. I think that's going to change. I think we're going to have to build more transmission to facilitate more renewables all around us. Otherwise, we will become a linchpin for the MISO and SPP renewable development, and we are actually looking at that.
Let me ask you a little bit about some of the challenges you face. In your testimony, you referenced how, on the one hand, we're retiring dispatchable coal generation at a really pretty remarkable rate. I think it's 86,000 megawatts retired since 2011, another 73,000 megawatts predicted by 2040. In our state, in the state of Missouri, we've relied on coal for 74% of the state's power as recently as 2021. So talk to me a little bit about the challenge we face when we think about wind and solar energy, more intermittent, less reliable than coal, natural gas, nuclear. How do we think about the reliability issues and address those?
We believe in renewables. There have been some comments earlier today. We have renewables. We have about 1,240 megawatts of wind and 500 megawatts of hydro allocation. The challenge is that during many of these weather events, we either get a lot of wind or no wind. And so in trying to plan for weather events when they come along, whether it be the summer or the winter, the challenge around wind and solar and batteries is that it's not 4 hours. It's typically days. Uri was about 8 days of temperatures at 0 or below. And Elliott was shorter, but the wind chills were more significant. When things get cold, we had a number of the wind farms froze, but our fossil fuel plants, because they're already running, they have a tendency to perform better. I'm not a coal guy. I'm just about providing low-cost electricity to my members, and we know what works. Our fossil fuel plants work in today's environment. In the future, I agree with many things that have been said today, and that is if we could get to an orderly transition that allows us to make changes in the type of generation that everyone relies on, we're all for that, but that generation doesn't exist yet. There is nothing out there to replace a coal plant. It's not there.
Yeah, thank you for your testimony on this. I've got some more questions I'd love to ask you. For the record, I appreciate what you do for my state and for Springfield and the whole region. Thank you for being here. Thanks for the other witnesses for being here. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I will yield back.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Tudor, if I could just come back to you and pick up Senator Brasso's line of questioning. He was talking to you about components in China. You said yes. Elaborate. What comes from China?
Well, when you start talking about batteries, many of the minerals come from China. You talk about solar panels, as you know, there's been an embargo against solar panels coming from China. The number of the solar panel companies they're built in China. So when you start bringing renewables into the mix and all these projects, part of what what Manu's talking about is that all these projects are sitting there in the queue, but not all of them have panels. What they've done is they may have land, they may have bought a transformer. They have to do certain things to actually, they may have put a deposit down, but just because they put a deposit down on 10 different sites in PJM doesn't mean they're ever going to build that solar. And part of the challenge is, where are you going to get the equipment? And a lot of that equipment, it comes from overseas, and most of it from China.
Is it a good idea in general for us to be more dependent for critical energy components on China, in your view?
I do not think it's a good idea. No,
yeah, I wouldn't think so either. Let me ask you just briefly about another Biden administration rule. This is an EPA rule that would limit carbon dioxide emissions from coal and gas power plants that they issued just last month. You mentioned this in your testimony. You said, I'm going to quote you, the EPA has indicated that their goal is to encourage the closure of coal and natural gas units. Let me just ask you, what do you expect the effect of those mandates will be for prices in Missouri, for example?
Well, there will be significant litigation against the 111BD rules. They're not. Right now, it's just a proposal. There's a 60-day time frame for all of us to make comments. I think that, first of all, is unfair for the RTOs and companies like ours or Southern Company. For us to actually try and look at the effects of that in a 60-day window is frankly unfair. And then whatever they come out with the rule, that's when we have to file litigation. I think you will see significant litigation against that rule. That's money and time, and that cost. So if you have a strategy to run someone out of business by basically taking away their financing and their ability to insure, and you increase their cost, that's a quick way. And then you incent other resources. I'm not pointing at anybody. If you incent other resources, what you do is you create this scenario where it's picking sides. It's picking winners and losers. And I don't think we should be picking winners and losers. That's just my personal opinion.
Well, you're the expert in this field, not me. I would just say that it seems to me that we wouldn't want to be closing down our own energy resources in this country, raising prices for our consumers while simultaneously making ourselves dependent on China in particular, where America gets poorer, China gets richer. That seems like a bad deal to me, whether we're talking about energy or anything else. So I kind of think we're going in the wrong direction here, and I think that your testimony points that out and highlights it. So thank you for being. Yeah, go ahead.
One last point is that I don't know how you can do this, but any way that you can actually slow the EPA down, and they're supposed to have this joint discussions going on with the DOE, anything we can do to get them understanding the significant risk they're putting our country at by forcing something that works to go away before you have something to replace it, we've got to slow them down. That doesn't mean that I believe in climate change. I think the climate is changing. I just think reliability is more important. Sorry.
Hey, I'm with you. And also, let's talk about the people who you serve, who pay the bills. Are we going to ask low-income folks, working people in my state, to foot the bills for this administration's climate agenda that benefits China? No thanks. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.